Thank you for stopping by the channel, whether you're a return viewer, first time viewer. Either way, we're gonna treat you good. You read the title, you saw the thumbnail, you know what we're talking about. Talking about my fighting rifle for the Southeast. Go ahead and clear the weapon, and then we'll jump right into it. Rifle is clear. So the rifle itself is a lead and steel all-round carbine. It is a 12.5 inch 5.56. Lead and steel does not make the 12.5 inch anymore. They make 14.5s and 16 inches, I do believe. So if you want to see one of those on the channel, let me know and I'll see if I can get a hold of one. Lead and Steel did provide this rifle and optic for me. Now, the rifle itself has been absolutely phenomenal. I've had, I think last time I counted up, I was at like 5,000 rounds. At this point, I should be around the 7K mark. I've had very, very minimal malfunctions. Any malfunctions have been due to my own neglect of the rifle. I don't clean rifles, and this one has been run suppressed, I would say, easily 99% of the time. The cam pretty much lives on there, and again, I don't clean rifles. I barely even oil them. This one right now is completely dry. It's atrocious, but that's just how I do things. It's not recommended. Don't do what I do. You should definitely clean your guns, take care of them. Again, it's just my own neglect, and it's caused a couple malfunctions, but again, that is due to myself. If I was to clean it like I'm supposed to, it would cut down on the malfunctions that I've had. But again, they have been very minimal. I'm talking less than 5 malfunctions out of the 7,000 rounds, and any of them have been due to it just being a dry gun. So we'll go ahead and jump into the way that I've got it set up. We'll start up here at the suppressor and work our way down. If you've ever been talking about red rain boots, hopped on Instagram and you've got red rain boots popping up, well, you can thank data brokers. So what data brokers do is they search the internet for any of your information that they can get a hold of, whether that be your bank account information, social media passwords, search histories, medical records, it doesn't matter. Data brokers are out to get your information and sell that to spammers, scammers, hackers, and people that want to steal your identity. So thanks to today's video sponsor, Aura. What Aura does is they're the good guys in the fight. They use a 24/7 software that constantly searches the internet for any of your information that might pop up and might end up in the wrong hands. If they do find it where it is in the wrong hands, well, they'll give you the option to go ahead and opt out of it automatically. So that's going to cut down on the spam calls and emails that you might get. It's also going to make sure that your bank accounts and social medias and everything that you love and hold dear, all of your identities, will make sure that it belongs to you and it doesn't end up somewhere else. So thanks to Aura, they are actually giving all of my viewers a 2-week free trial with full access to membership benefits. To do this, all you're going to do is go to aura.com/overalls. You can also use the link in my description or the link pinned in the top of the comment section. To put into perspective of just how bad this cyber crime is, it was just a couple months ago, AT&T reported it was like 73 million members, current and former members, and their information was leaked out onto the dark web for anybody to get a hold of. So again, that could have been you. Your information could be out there already. So make sure that you check out the 2-week free trial to go ahead and start capitalizing on all the benefits that Aura offers. Again, it's a one-stop shop for all of your online protection. Whether that's cutting down on spammers, scammers, hackers, these data brokers that want to steal your information. It's got parental control, all of that. So again, go to aura.com/overalls. You can also use the link in the description of the video or pinned in the top of the comment section. Again, huge thank you to Aura. Could not do what I do without them. Back to the video. So the suppressor that I'm running is the Otter Creek Labs Polonium K. Me personally, I'm a firm believer in running suppressed as much as I possibly can. Now, I've gotten comments before asking why am I running 5.5 or why am I running a can on 5.56? That's pointless. And if you don't understand the reason for a suppressor, yes, it would look pointless because 5.56 does not suppress well as far as sound goes. But a suppressor is not meant to just make the gun quiet, it's signature reduction. And there's a lot more components to signature reduction other than just sound. So yes, you're not getting a super quiet gun when you throw a can on 5.56, but again, signature reduction goes beyond that. A few instances will be flash. So I was out here shooting at night just the other day, or well, just the other night. Had a few rifles out here with some buddies. Some were running suppressed, some were not running suppressed, and I was getting absolutely zero flash out of this can and this setup while they're throwing major fireballs. So that goes into even just the enjoyment of it. I wasn't being blinded by my rifle. I could stay focused on the target because there wasn't a big fireball going out and ruining my natural night vision. If this was some sort of fighting role, obviously big fireballs in the night is going to draw in a lot of attention. So that's one aspect of signature reduction, is the amount of flash that your rifle is going to produce. Another one is, yes, it doesn't make the sound quiet, but it does make it more comfortable. It tones it down some, makes it much more pleasant to shoot. It doesn't discombobulate you when you do go to blast off a round. So I was shooting a comp the other week. Now I was running my 18-inch gun. It was a DMR style match. And there were several of the stages where we were shooting out of a Connex tower. So it's a bunch of sea containers stacked up 4 stories high. So it's just a big giant steel structure. We're shooting out of it. I was the only one running suppressed. Once the guys would let off with those DMR style rifles and they're running muzzle brakes, it was literally making our teeth rattle. I mean, everybody had headaches. It was absolutely miserable being in that structure. Now, when I would step up with suppressor, it was much more pleasant for myself and everybody else because it wasn't echoing like those muzzle brakes where it wasn't reverberating off of that steel. So again, it wasn't quiet, but it was much more pleasant because of the tone of it, and it tamed it a little bit better. Wasn't throwing as much concussion out and like the muzzle brakes were. Another one is, with that tone, it makes it harder to identify where the shot's coming from. So even though it's not quiet, it's a lot, like I said, it's a lot harder to pinpoint where it's coming from just because of the nature of how it sounds and the tone of it. I'm not into science, so I don't really understand it. It's just what I've been told. And then you've also got to think about, when you're outside, the amount of concussion that's coming off of it. So as you saw in the intro, I was running through trenches, and these are 12-foot deep trenches. Now, if you was to have multiple people in there, or even just I by myself, when those walls get narrow in, and if I was to start breaking off rounds with a muzzle brake, I'm going to be knocking all kinds of dirt and everything off the walls. It's going to be really, really concussive to myself, and especially if there was other people around. So regardless of if you're outside, if you're running at night, daytime, in buildings, it doesn't really matter. I'm a huge proponent of running your rifle suppressed. Again, I'm running the Otter Creek Labs Polonium K, fantastic can. Coming back from there, you can see that I'm running a light on it. Again, huge proponent, your rifle needs to have a light on it. Your fighting gun, any gun that there's a likelihood that you might be running it in a self-defense situation or some sort of fighting situation, you need to have a light on it. Even if you're not planning on using it at night, you don't know what you might come up on. Again, in the intro, I was running through the creek down there in the trench, and there was these, I guess you could call them caves, these big holes. I'm pretty sure it's just natural erosion, but these holes run up in the bank a good 5, 6, 7 feet, some of them big enough to fit a person up inside of comfortably. I was running this in the middle of the daytime, but due to being under the canopy of the trees, it was already darker in there, dropped down in a trench, so cutting down on the light, and then these holes were completely black, pitch black holes. Now, obviously I knew that there wasn't anything in there, but giving a situation that you might end up in the context of this video, you don't know what type of situations you might come up on, and you're gonna need a white light, even if it's in the middle of the daytime. If you're in a more urban environment, you might have to make entry into a room, into a building, and then inside that building the power could be off, and then if you've got to make entry into an interior room of said building where you're not going to have windows to actually light it up, so again, you need to have a light on your weapon. Obviously, this is not quite as common. Now, this is a Surefire Scout light, so the amount of pads and configurations I could put it in is pretty much endless as far as lights go. Something that I'm doing that is not super common is I'm actually running it on my support hand side. So I'm right-handed, so I'm running it on my left hand side, and I'm running a clicky cap, not a pressure pad. Now, one way that I can do this is because I'm running, as I mentioned, a 12.5 inch, so I've got a little bit longer rail, and I'm not hurting for rail space. This length is the same length that I use on, say, like my 18 inch, so it's very consistent across the board as far as where I'm gripping the rifle. So I can run that light there, and it's not hindering the amount of space that I have. Obviously, if you're running a shorter setup, you're going to need to put that light on the other side just so that you've actually got somewhere to grab. If you're running IR lasers, I'm not rich enough for IR lasers and night vision. I can't afford that at the moment. So depending on your setup, you might have to do that. The reason that I'm running it on this side, for one, I don't love pressure switches. I think that that's added failure points. Obviously, that can be mitigated with high quality pressure pads and proper wire routing. Just the other day, I actually had a pressure switch that it's not working anymore. The actual cable that connects from the tail of the light to the pressure switch got kinked up too much and it shorted out, and now that pressure switch doesn't work. So if that was to happen in the field and I didn't have another cap to just throw on the light, well, then I'd have been pretty much screwed because my light would have no longer been operational. The other reason that I'm running on the left side is when I go to sling the rifle, and obviously I'm running a suppressor, and so suppressors get hot and they're going to burn you if they touch you after you've done even just a few rounds. So I run the light on this side, that way when I do go to drop the rifle, that light, it actually contacts my leg and it works as a standoff device, keeps the suppressor from touching me. Now, that's not 100% fail proof, but up until this point, I've not had the suppressor touch me while I've been running the light on this side. Now, obviously, I'm running it out a little bit further past the handguard, and it's to the point that if I was to take the suppressor off, the light is actually past the muzzle, and that's not recommended. So if you are running unsuppressed, you would want to pull that light back, and again, if you was to pull the light back, you'd want to throw it on the other side. So this is just the way that I've got it set up. Your experiences may vary, but we're talking about my rifle for the moment. Coming back from there, I'm running a Lunar Concepts Hot Pocket from Wiseman Company. So it's just a heat shield because this does heat up very, very quickly. It's a thin handguard, and running suppressed, you're putting more gases back through the system and it causes the gun to heat up faster. So I'm running a heat wrap, absolutely phenomenal heat shield. Haven't had any complaints with that. Underneath it, got a hand stop from Scratch Precision. It's they did send this out for some testing and evaluation. So far it's holding up great. Really like the design, really minimal. If you want to run a hand stop, then you should definitely check out the Scratch Precision. I want to say it's the Sentinel. Coming back from that, again, Lunar Concepts from Wiseman Company. It's their Bubba Tab. It's just a sling retention. Speaking of slings, you need to have a sling on your rifle. I don't care what rifle it is. You need to have a sling for it, and you need to have the ability to put the sling on in a hurry. So QD cups. I don't think that you have to have your sling on the rifle all the time. Again, to make reference back to the DMR match, I took the sling off. Now the sling is just held on with QD cups, so I was able to pull it off, throw it in my pack, and I didn't run a sling, just it was gonna get in the way more than anything. But at any point, if I decided that I needed to put the sling on, within a second and a half, you know, I could have the sling back on it. So again, you need to have the option to run a sling. I don't care if you're running a shoestring, the fanciest sling there is, or a ratchet strap. You need to have some way of retaining your rifle for when you need to set it down. You don't wanna have to set down your rifle and then get out of somewhere in a hurry, get 100 yards and realize that you left your rifle back laying on the ground and there's no way to go back and get it, and now you're walking around armless. Well, you would still have your arms, but fire armless. You would not be armed. So again, you need to have a way of retaining your rifle. You don't know what situations you might come upon. Maybe your arms are just tired and you don't want to carry the rifle anymore. It's nice being able to just drop it and let it hang. You might have to climb something, you might have to grab something, carry something, help a buddy up. It doesn't matter. You need to have a way of setting your rifle down without actually setting it on the ground. You want it to stay attached to you. So the sling that I'm running is from Eastern Shore Sling Co. It's actually quickly becoming one of my favorite slings. They've redesigned the wheel. So instead of having your usual slider that slides up and down, it is it stays in the same place. So you've got this little tab here. You pull that, it loosens it up. To tighten it up, you just grab this tab here and pull that. But again, to loosen it, you don't have to reach back behind you. Especially when you got kid on, they can get a little bit aggravating, a little bit difficult to reach back and find it. So it's just this one tab right here. It's harder to do it off body, but you just pull that tab and it loosens up the whole sling. So now optic selection. Obviously, I'm running just a simple red dot. Again, this was provided to me by Lead and Steel with their LP1 or their Prometheum. I've had it for about 1.5 years now. It's held up absolutely phenomenal. Zero complaints with it. It's got 3 reticle options, so you can run just a center dot, You can run a center dot with an outer ring or just the outer ring. I'm running just the single dot. I like to cut down on the amount of information that my mind has to process through. So again, just running a simple dot. I'm not running a magnifier behind it, but I am running it on a Unity riser clone just to pick that height up a little bit. I ran it just flush for a while, and that works. It works fine. But something that you should consider is, depending on the amount of gear that you have, muscle fatigue is a real concern, especially when you start getting dehydrated and low on calories like I am right now. I mean, it is absolutely scorching out here. Everything underneath the kit is completely swampy. So you need to be able to cut down on the amount of muscle fatigue if you can avoid it. One way of doing that is just as overlooked a lot is being able to actually raise the optic up. That's going to keep you from having to crouch your head down or keep your shoulder raised up, way up. So I can keep a very neutral position. So depending on the amount of kit that you've got on, it's gonna be pretty strenuous trying to keep your shoulder picked up to keep that optic in front of your eye. And then if you're running anything on your head, whether that be a helmet or nods or what have you, having to support all of that weight and get hunched down on the gun, again, it's just going to be very strenuous on your muscles, and it's going to cause a lot of muscle fatigue, especially if you're dehydrated. So again, trying to cut down on the amount of weight. I'm not running a magnifier. Cuts down on snag points. I would rather carry the weight on my back if I can. So having a magnifier that is a QD on a QD mount will be really nice. It's just not what I'm running at the moment. Obviously, having magnification is nice, and that is extremely important. You need to be able to identify your target and exactly what it is, where it's going. Everything that there is to know about your target, you need to be able to identify that. So even in an environment like this where it's really dense vegetation, having magnification is really nice. I can actually draw from experience. I do hunt around here quite a bit in this type of environment, just very thick vegetation. The shots are, 50 yards or less. And even then, having magnification is really important. What I have opted to do with this setup, in conjunction with the red dot, is in my pack, I'm actually keeping a pair of binos. So this is the Zerotech Thrive HD. It's just a 10 power pair of binos. The glass clarity is absolutely phenomenal. Zerotech, as y'all know, if y'all have been a part of the channel, Zerotech is one of my biggest supporters. They really help the channel out with optics. So again, I can run a pair of 10X binos in conjunction with the red dot. One of the there's several benefits of having binos. For one, I can keep this in my pack and I'm not actually having to support it with my hands on the rifle. Another one is if I need to actually glass, I'm not having to glass with the rifle. This is a much lower signature. Being able to keep everything up close, and again, I'm not just swinging a rifle around. 10 power is more than you're going to get with a magnifier. It's more than you're going to get with most LPVOs, and the field of view is going to be much better through a pair of binos than at max 10 power through an LPVO. The light transmission is going to be much better because you're not relying on a 30mm tube to supply you with your light transmission. Another huge benefit of running binos is actually being able to set your focus distance. It's not something you can do on any sort of scope that I'm aware of, especially not an LPVO. So what I mean by that is, okay, I'm looking at the camera right now. I can focus solely on the camera, set the focus distance, and everything behind the camera and in front of the camera is completely blurred out. If I want to go on the hilltop behind the camera, now the camera is completely blurred out, the wood line's blurred out, but I'm looking on the hilltop. Go out even further, now the camera, the hilltop is blurred out, but the wood line is in focus. So that helps when you're trying to spot something through this thick vegetation. You can actually punch through everything in the foreground and in the background and focus solely on that distance that the target is moving in. Just really helps you cut down on the amount of information that your mind has to process. Again, that is a huge deal. Anytime that you can make it easier on your mind, especially when you're dehydrated, is really going to be beneficial. So there's obviously a bunch of options. If you want to run LPVO and then a top dot or a 45-degree dot, you want to run red dot with a magnifier, that's all options. Something that I have found to work really well for myself, though, in conjunction with running the red dot, is keeping a pair of binos on hand. So in terms of caliber selection, obviously I'm running 5.56 because I don't live in a perfect world. I have to buy the ammo that I'm shooting. So if If there's another caliber that was as readily available and is inexpensive to shoot as 5.56, I would definitely consider it. 5.56 is not ideal. Again, the huge benefit of it is readily available and is pretty inexpensive to shoot in relationship to other calibers. But for this type of environment, it's not ideal. I was again reminded of it just while filming the intro just a little bit ago. So as you can see this target here, these shots were taken less than 15 yards, and you can see one here, 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 here. So that's 5 different rounds just in this one target. Again, less than 15 yards where the bullets are actually tumbling just because they were hitting, I'm talking very, very minor amount of vegetation. But that's just one of the disadvantages of 5.56. Obviously, this target's got a bunch of rounds in it. I was able to keep, most of them on target, and that's still going to do the job. 5.56 has been killing people for a very, very long time. A lot of people have had their life ended by 5.56, so it is no slouch when it comes to lethality and effectiveness. But for this type of environment, if I lived in a perfect world, 5.56 might not be the option that I would go with. I would probably go with something with a little bit more mass, something 7.62 or so. Now, obviously, you can carry a lot of rounds with 5.56, so that's one of the big advantages of it. Obviously, I'm running 5.56. I'm not complaining about it at all. I'm just saying, in a perfect world, if I could afford it, 5.56 might not be my caliber of choice for the southeastern region. So we talk about all of this fighting and whatnot. We fantasize about war. The conclusion that I've come to is war is fun to fantasize about, absolutely hell to live. There's not a single situation or scenario or type of war that I could conjure up that it looked good. It's not, there's nothing to even compare it to. There's never been a country that has been at war on their home soil where their citizens have been as armed as the U.S. has. So there's nothing to really compare it to. There's no other country that their civilians and their citizens have had the amount of small arms, firepower, nods, kit, plates, thermals, night vision, all that type of stuff. There's never been a situation like that. So I would be very interested in seeing what that would look like. Obviously, if I could do it from a third-person view and I wasn't actually having to be involved in it. Again, war is fun to fantasize about, hell to live. There's not a good scenario that I can picture up. Is it another country invading us like Red Dawn? Well, if that was the case, no amount of guns that we've got is really going to do anything, because they're not parachuting in. They're dropping bombs. They don't want any resources that the U.S. has. They want the population of the U.S. to be gone. If it's our own government, well, they're already at war against us. They're not using firepower to do so, but they are against us with starvation, disease, sicknesses, poverty, you name it. They're against us as they're just not using guns against us. There's not much that your kid's going to do against that type of stuff. We're kind of at their mercy, honestly. Is it maybe some sort of weird situation where you've got these just big territories going against each other? At that point, that would be completely chaos. It would end up turning into every man for himself, because there would be really no way to identify one person from one territory as opposed to another person from another territory. One of the beautiful things about the U.S. is the population is completely diverse. It's also a disadvantage in this type of situation. Any other conflict, you've been able to have basically one ethnicity against another ethnicity. If you're in this location, the other ethnicity is there, well, they're probably the enemy. The U.S. is a completely big giant pool of every ethnicity. So we will not be able to pick out a certain group of people that is most likely to be the enemy. We'll have the exact same type of people, friendlies, as we will the enemy, if that was the situation. Again, that sounds like complete hell. I do think that is the most common or the most likely situation for any type of SHTF situation. What I've drawn up is that the most likely situation will be something that we have already slightly experienced. It'll be basically hot zones in mainly these big cities. It'll be a mass amount of civil unrest. We've experienced just a small amount of it. I think that the most likely situation, again, will be something along those lines, just in a much larger scale. I'm talking about cartel, basically cartel size groups, cartels, militias, gangs will be fighting for control of these cities. And I think that would be the best case scenario as far as likely scenarios go. That will be the only one where having all of the kit that you have, the weapon setups, that's the scenario where it would actually be beneficial, because you would be able to actually plan and coordinate with a group of people, disperse weapons and roles so that you can cover the most amount of scenarios that you might encounter. Me personally, I would rather take shots. I'm much more comfortable taking shots at that 400 to 800 yard range. That's what I do. That is what I enjoy doing. That's what I've put a lot of focus in. I don't want to clear buildings. So if I'm not in a team environment, I'm pretty much screwed if I've got to do any sort of CQB. That's just the nature of it. If it's a situation where you're planning on bugging out, sorry, but you're not going to make it. In that type of situation, the same chunk of land that you're probably planning on bugging out in, there's 4,000 other dudes that are planning on bugging out on that exact same piece of property. If it's every man for himself and you're bugging out, now you're just, it's every man for himself in that environment. Again, you're probably not going to make it. If you're going to bug in, say you live in a neighborhood, you've got your multi-million-dollar gun room. Again, I'm super jealous of you if you've got a multi-million-dollar gun room. I do not have that. But if you've got all this stuff stashed at your house, you've got to ask yourself, how hard is it to actually get to in a situation where you've got bombs and there's no rules? You know, can they blow up your house and gain access to everything that you have stored in there? Maybe you're in a neighborhood and you were planning on just bugging in your house in the neighborhood. Well, you have to ask yourself, are you going to share with your neighbors when things get really bad? If the enemy starts coming in, taking out your neighbors, and they're running out of ammo, they don't have any, are you going to start handing out your ammo, or are you going to hoard it for yourself, let your neighbors get killed, and then try to defend everything by yourself? So again, there's not a good scenario for war, especially in the U.S. on our turf. There's not a good scenario. Doesn't matter how much kit you have, how many guns you have, how much ammo you've got stored. There's not a good scenario. So that is something that you need to take into consideration when buying all of your kit, buying your guns, doing all this training. For me, honestly, this is where I'm going to vary from most of you as far as my train of thought. Again, there's not a good scenario, but I cannot imagine living in a time like this and not having the hope of Jesus Christ. Again, this is where I'm going to vary from most of you. There's absolutely no hope found in this world, especially in the times that we live in now, and I don't know how people get through it without having the hope of Jesus Christ. I don't even know what they're living for. If things get this bad, my honest opinion is that it will get really, really bad. My only hope is that more of you can have the opportunity to meet Jesus Christ before that happens. If you don't know Jesus Christ, I cannot encourage you enough. I cannot stress the importance and the urgency of this message. If you do not know Jesus Christ, if you do not have that hope, I would highly encourage you to get plugged in and seek truth for yourself. Again, I cannot stress the urgency of this message. I don't know how I would get through without Jesus Christ, without that hope in my life. So if you need anybody to talk to, if you've got any questions, if you need any sort of encouragement, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can reach out to me. You can DM me on Instagram. It's Operator Overalls. It'll be linked in the description of this video. Also, this month is Men's Mental Health Month. If you're struggling with anything mentally, please, please, please do not fight alone. Reach out to me. Reach out to somebody else. Get the help. Do not fight this alone. A 3-ply cord is not easily broken. Do not fight this alone. Make sure that you're reaching out to your buddies, especially those that have had trauma in the past. Even if they seem okay, even if they're all laughs and smiles when you're hanging out, please reach out to them. Let them know that they don't have to fight this alone. Again, this is Men's Mental Health Month. Be sure that you're checking up on the homies. Be sure to hop down in the description. Check out what I've got linked down there. I have some training with a weapon snatcher. I'll be out at the sawmill with him all month. He'll be doing an entire month of classes at the sawmill. I'll be running his camera for him. Hop in one of those classes if you can. We would love to have you out there. That'll be linked down in the description as well. And again, my Instagram will be linked down there. Also, it's the same handle as Operator Overalls. Be sure to hop over there. Check out what I've got going on. Make sure that you're a part of all the action. I'm a gun gear photographer over there. So if you like cool pictures, well, you'll probably enjoy your time over there. I'm a lot quicker to respond to DMs over there as well. Be sure to like and subscribe the video. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Really helps me out, helps me get this content out, helps me grow. And then be sure to leave a comment. Let me know where you're at. Let me know your geographical location. Let me know your thoughts on how you're set up, what the most likely scenario is in your mind, and how you're preparing for it. I would love to chit chat about you. Also, I used to make it a point to try to respond to every single comment, and I've done very good at that for a long time until it got out of hand, and I can't hardly keep up. So I would really appreciate if some of y'all would take it upon yourselves to hop down in the comments and help me answer questions, respond to people. Be greatly appreciated. I'd love to get down there and chat with you as well. I will be in the comments, so leave one and I'll try to get to you best I can. Thank you for watching so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.